In this presentation on the beginning of the churches of Nubia and Abyssinia between 1 to 700 AD, we look at the challenges that went with it. But first, let us look at Nubia itself, because we are talking about the churches, the beginning of churches of Nubia and Abyssinia. So what is Nubia and Abyssinia? What are they? What do they stand for today? What are these names standing for today? Nubia or Nubia is a biblical Cush, meaning the south, which the Septuagint called Ethiopia. Read Isaiah 18:1. The psalmist referred to their future conversion, Psalm 68:31. The eunuch baptized by Philip, as you read in Acts chapter 8, was an official in the royal court in Ethiopia. However, whether he really brought the Christian faith to Ethiopia remains a matter of speculation. However, some historians consider this to be the first stage of the beginning of Christianity in Ethiopia. Information about the growth of the Nubian church from the year 30 to the year 500 AD or CE is lacking. However, Origen of Egypt, this scholar who lived between 185 to 253 AD, mentions in one of his books that the gospel was being preached to the Ethiopians, but not all of them had been reached at that time. In the 4th century, we hear of Nubian monks in Egypt, and during the Arian controversy, Coptic Christians fled to Nubia. Monks, soldiers, and traders may have brought back to Nubia the Christian faith they had found in Egypt. Archaeological excavations at Faras show a church and Christian inscriptions of the 5th century. It is not until the 6th century that we hear of intense missionary activity in Nubia. The interesting thing about the Christian kingdom of Nubia is that it flourished only when the Arabs were already ruling over northern Africa from 700 to 1200 AD. These Nubian Christians lived almost in complete isolation until they succumbed to the Turkish aggression. We all remember Mir Arabi, a very tough fighter who fought the Portuguese in the years to come. So the Turkish aggression is critical in understanding the history of the Nubian Christians or the Nubian Christianity. Now, in Abyssinia, the gospel message arrived in the 4th century. According to history, a young Christian man by the name of Firmenicius went on a journey from Tyre to India. On his return trip, the ship stopped at the harbor at a place called Axum on the Abyssinian coast. The local people were hostile, and he was taken as a slave to work in the king's court. Firmenicius made a good impression on the king and was given his freedom. As a free man, Firmenicius remained at Axum and got together with a group of traders who were Christians to start a church. After some years, he went to Alexandria to ask for a bishop to lead the church. Here, it was agreed that Firmenicius would be the most suitable appointment. He was consecrated bishop of Axum in the year 356 AD or CE, if you like it. And on returning to Axum, he saw many converted to Christianity. The king of Axium embraced Christianity and made Christianity the official faith of the kingdom. And a ranch church was built in Axium eventually. This is considered in history as the second stage of the introduction of Christianity in Ethiopia. Towards the end of the 5th century, that is around the year 480, it is said that 9 missionaries came from the Syrian church. They were followers of the monophysite heresy, or false teaching in religion, which is called heresy. Those monophysite followers arrived as missionaries from Syria and taught the converts about the one nature of Christ, that Christ doesn't have two natures, that is humanity and divinity. He had only one nature. Even today, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church continues to follow the teachings of the monophysite tradition that denies one nature of Christ and talks about the divine nature and no human nature. Now, sometime during the 6th century, the Bible was translated into the local Giz language used by the people of Axium. In the centuries to come, when the Muslims made communication with other Christian churches difficult, when they made it difficult, or in the century to come, when the Muslims made communication with other Christian churches very difficult, the church in Abyssinia did have the Bible in the language of the people to use for study, thus ensuring that the church continued despite its isolation that came with the Islamic advance. And this is seen as the third stage of the Christianization of Ethiopia. In addition, during the reign of Emperor Justinian, that is the year 527 to 565 AD, 2 missions went to Nubia. The first mission party went to a place called Nobadai in northern Nubia, and was led by a man called Julian. The king and the nobles of that area welcomed them. Julian was a monophysite. A monophysite is that team of people having more or less a false doctrine of Christianity where they denied one nature of Christ. And therefore, many converts became the followers of monophysism. And another missionary group arrived in Nobadai. They were from the Eastern Church and were not monophysites. Julian ensured that they were not welcomed, and they were forced to go further south to work among the Makorites, the people in Ethiopia you call Makorites. In about 568 AD, another missionary was sent to Nobadai from Alexandria, Egypt, to encourage the first converts. He was called Roginus. He built a church, ordained a clergy, and taught them